All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to another episode of Poker Distilled. I can't imagine, Melissa, what it's like to be an accountant. Like, I can't imagine it because I have to do accounts, right, for the business every quarter,
Yeah.
and putting stuff in spreadsheets and copy and pasting things and finding VAT receipts and stuff like this. By the time I've done that for a few hours, I just like have this sense of almost futility. Like I feel like it doesn't actually matter whether I'm conscious or sentient or alive or whether I just cease to exist. That's kind of how I'm feeling right now. So maybe you can pick me
Yeah.
up today and I don't know, keep me entertained.
You guys have a VAT tax, a VAT tax. We don't have that in the United States.
Yeah, yeah,
That's good. I mean, that's good for us, not good for you. But that's like an extreme sale, kind of like an extreme sales tax. I don't know.
yeah. It's like
But
20% on various
yeah,
things. Unfortunately, like virtual products like courses and stuff now fall under
yeah,
this under recent legislation. So
yeah, yeah. Well, it makes sense. They have to tax it somehow. It's just like there's so much business done digitally. There'd be no way they could let it go. Um, All right. Well, I will start off then and say that a few updates. Number one is longtime listeners of the podcast will recall, I believe it was last season, I announced that I was challenged to a heads up uh, match or matches from the uh, guy who is the manager of my local card room and a friend of mine and someone who I play with a lot and um, kind of just normal games, but he loves poker, he loves to play, he loves challenges. He's kind of a um I think he's kind of a like proud alpha male, if you will. Like he loves to be like on top of things and kind of win. And so I thought, sure. And at the time, I didn't really have any heads up experience, and we agreed to three matches, uh, essentially a sit and go format. So we was like 1K um, per match, and the winner would basically you'd win 3K or you'd win 1K if you want to. So that was kind of the deal. So um, we started off the first match. I didn't really know what I was doing, but I liked it, and we didn't finish it at once, all at once. So kind of went away, and then I actually made contact with two of the coaches, senseis in our Discord group for Carrot Corner, who I'm sure many of our listeners know, both named Justin. Justin Liu has a great deep dive three bet pot or three bet
come
pots
on,
in
Melissa. It's a very eloquently and short named series. You should be able to say it. It's definitely not like
it's
16 words
it's
long.
GTO it's GTO deep dive three bet pots button versus cutoff. Is that right? Is that right?
Yeah, just looking at this, it's just like, what is this title? I'm like, well, that's what it is. That is literally what it is. Like, maybe we could
It's
have
a
just
deep
called it,
dive.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, exactly. There's nothing fancy about it. It is what it is. It's a deep dive into a very specific spot that
Yep.
comes up a lot. So, anyways, he's the one that did that video. And then Justin, who I don't know what his full name is, but he's one of the senseis in our Discord. And anyways, both of them reached out to me and offered to play some heads up and give me some coaching on it. And that was really great. And over the course of playing a lot of heads up with them online, I discovered that I really loved it. I really loved the heads up format. And I came back and finished our first match. I lost the first match. And then last night we went into the second match. I was actually, I had to start short with like 20 bigs because we had played and stopped. Anyways, I lost the second one and then I won the third one. So I ended up uh, being a loser on the three over the course of the three sessions, but I felt like I played pretty well. I was pretty happy with my play. I think the variance was not on my side last night for sure. Um, Multiple spots where um, I just was in spots where I felt like I kind of just had to call based on what I understand about the theory. And I don't understand. I still don't understand a lot about the theory, but in the spots that I did, I felt like I had to call, and he just had better hands. Um, But what's interesting is what allowed me to, I think, survive and essentially win the third match is that in a lot of spots in heads up, as far as I know, the investment ceiling is quite high. And so you don't really have the same restriction on what you can bet that you may have in a six max or full ring situation. And there were many times where my opponent was just not anywhere near that investment ceiling. So it was allowing me to continue with kind of, I would say, low to medium equity hands that I think, or even higher equity hands, maybe sometimes like even above 50%, where I kind of felt like I had to continue. It allowed, I was able to continue without losing my stack. And I felt like that was a huge leak from his perspective because he could have finished me off probably a lot quicker than, and I wouldn't have been able to fight back. Like a lot of times I was down to like 10 bigs, 15 bigs, and I fought back. And, and I just think that's really an interesting point. Or what was interesting to me about that is that like this in the carrot poker school, it's referred to as like greed theorem, where you can bet large, and I think it's actually it works fairly well as an exploit too, especially against fish, where when you have value at the top of your range, you can bet big and not bet small and think, oh, I just need to get called here, I want value. And so I thought that was one interesting point.
Yeah.
So that's my update on that.
Yeah, well, these live players, they have this imaginary ceiling, huh? You're not allowed to bet more than the pot, you might say, huh? Or at least so they think.
Yeah, the overbet is I don't know. I'm so in love with the overbet. In fact, it's sometimes it's my downfall, not my downfall, but I think it causes me to get into spots where I invest more than I should. And because I love that shock to the opponent of like, and it's not so much, I can't imagine it happens as much online, but in live players, it's just like you ever bet the pot, you're, B150, B250. Oh my gosh. And so I'm like, if I'm anywhere near kind of 40% full equity, I generally feel like I'm doing it. And I just love that. I've talked about it before, but I love that kind of shock of stepping out of the normal, the normal kind of modes of behavior, that zombie-like way of playing heads up, or not heads up, I'm sorry, playing live poker.
Yeah. I think it's like, in all seriousness, it's a huge, huge problem when you're like locked into societal or cultural norms in poker, where like you're playing in a game or you're in a peer group where they just don't really overbet, where it's not a thing. And then to do it doesn't even cross your mind because we have this like subconscious uniformity, this subconscious like sheepish behavior where we just end up like flocking to what the crowd is doing. So when somebody does, hit you with an overbet and you play in a pool where overbetting doesn't really happen, they immediately just distinguish themselves as like the wolf. They're already like the predator, and there's already that kind of hunted, like prey and hunter kind of ethos is established, and it's very, very powerful to be the hunter in that dynamic because your adrenaline is more like the focus, the galloping towards the prey, like crystal clear vision, like knowing what your plan is. It's that hyper focus A game kind of state, whereas the prey is in like a blind frenzy, right? They're like, oh no, like I have to react to this, I don't know what I'm doing, and I've got fear and anxiety and I'm uncomfortable. So right away it creates like that very instinctive prey predator dynamic that I think is like very good to be on the right side of. And then the other thing it does is it has the technical advantage of actually allowing you to play No Limit Holdem as it's meant to be played. Like we invented a game, the rules of which allow us to get 12 times the pot in by the river really easily, get 20 times the initial flop pot in by the river really easily. You can start off in a single raise pot with say 6 big blinds in there. You can bet 4, the pot becomes 14, and then you just bet like 23 on the turn, and now all of a sudden you're geometrically putting the rest in by the river by going like B140, B140, or whatever. And that, like, of course that's the way No Limit Holdem is meant to be played, right? When you actually really think about it, we've made a game with no sizing restriction. Wouldn't it be really arbitrary if pot was the restriction? Like, what is the relevance of pot? Why is 1-to-1 or 2-to-1, depending on whether you're betting, risking one to win one, or calling, risking one to win two. Why would that be this like Newtonian principle, this like Einsteinian like general relativity rule? Like, why would it be at pot? Like, it wouldn't, right? So what is this about? It's just because back in the day, culturally, a wall was erected there at pot. And even though these days we have broken that down at the forefront, the frontiers of poker are saying, overbet here, 2E, blah, 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 B160, Jam River, it's not trickled down to the masses yet. So you almost have this hierarchy where the academics or the scholars or the scientists like see the truth, but the peasantry is still like living in the Stone Age or something like that. It's just not trickled down.
Yeah.
And it's not like that in all games, like games like sports, like football or tennis, like, the pros start playing like serve and volley style in tennis, then a bunch of amateurs try it. In chess, like someone popularizes an opening and a bunch of amateurs try it. So in other disciplines, we seem to get much more of this trickle down effect from the top to the bottom. But I guess the elites in poker are kind of making, like, I guess they're making content that goes over the head too much of the amateur, like it's too unrelatable or something like that. Like, I think when you look at like a chess position from a grandmaster and you listen to like expert analysis, like if you watch like Gotham Chess, you can follow what's going on, right? Like to some extent, even if you're way lower rated. But I think with poker, it's more like you can sort of see what's happening in the hand, but the actual complexity of the game is like hidden behind some kind of wall to a lot of people. And I think that's just normalized by the in-casino experience of like the live 1-3 game or whatever,
I think that's there's a couple of different reasons for it. I think just like from like an evolutionary standpoint, I think because it developed out of limit, and I think people crossed over from limit to no limit,
Right.
and thinking that there were these restrictions that they were just used to organically as like a fundamental part of the game.
Mhm.
And I think also too, there's still this kind of stigma where among, I think, recreational players, to where it's like, I don't want to lose my stack. I don't want to invest more than, I don't want to look like an idiot by investing X amount over pot on a total bluff. And frankly, a lot of people just aren't studied enough to understand where it's proper to overbet, or where, they can do it in a way that's acceptable from a kind of theoretical standpoint. So like from their point of view, it's just chucking money into the pot, like without understanding like why they're doing it. And then also too, if they have a strong hand, if they have a value hand, they want to get called a lot of times. And so they look at it like, I'm going to scare away my opponent. So I want to make, I just flopped a set, I'm going to bet, depending on what type of fish it is, it could be, it could be a third or half size, or even, a pot size bet on the flop, and then pot size on the turn, and then all in on the river. And so it's really, it's kind of that simple. And I think so. And then also too, I think a lot of live players, the big secret is a lot of people are playing with scared money, or money they can't really afford to lose. And so the risk is not worth it to them. They just don't want to take that kind of risk. And it's a lot easier to just wait for good hands, or to wait for spots where they know that they're ahead and they feel comfortable doing it. And I just don't think that there's that kind of appetite there to understand when an overbet's appropriate and to execute it. And then also to live with the consequences of what happens when you run into the nuts, or like I had a hand last week where I overbet, I checked flop and then overbet turn, and like my opponent turned a set, and it's just like I ended up getting stacked. And I didn't do anything wrong from at least from a theoretical standpoint, even from an exploitative standpoint. It was just, I just ran into it. But I guess that's the risk when you invest more money into the pot. Anyways, what was I saying before? Oh yeah. So in the heads up context though, it can really be a detriment, because if you're not reaching that investment ceiling and you're playing any kind of a sit and go style where your opponent is limited to what they have in front of them and they can't rebuy, that is, I think, a real leak. And and the risk is like you think to yourself, oh, I have a really good hand, it's heads up, I don't know when I'm going to get another good hand, and I have to really milk my opponent for this. And it's like, no, like you
Yep.
have to jam, you
Yep.
have to get it all in. And that just wasn't happening in my match. But otherwise, I just I had a great time. It was a really good opportunity for me to get outside of my comfort zone, and also make me realize I kind of fell in love with the heads up format, um, and have since kind of been working a lot in my heads up game, and played a heads up tournament locally here in my area and did fairly well. And yeah, should I talk about my goal, my heads up goal? Remember,
Well, let me come back
announced
on
it.
a couple of things, and then I think you
Okay.
should do this announcement in a little
Okay.
bit because it is a really, really exciting thing, and I want to talk about it in detail. But if we do it
Okay.
now, I'm going to forget two of the
Go
points that I
ahead.
have coming off of
Yeah.
that last topic. The first point is about magnitude and frequency. Just to elaborate on that, people crave the immediate hit of being paid off because it's a dopamine rush, right? Like getting your way, unlocking the treasure chest, getting a payout. And the brain is really bad at quantifying EV in the long term in terms of magnitude and saying, well, if I get called when I bet 4x the pot and I get called a third of the time that my pot size bet gets called, then 4x the pot is actually a better size than the pot size bet, right? If I have the nuts in terms of what I can make, assuming I don't get raised when I bet the pot very often. And we can't really put that into perspective, but GTO can. So when we look up a sim, we see stuff like the following, right? And then, like to your point about looking heads up setting goals, that's a big problem. It's also a huge problem in six max cash because the SPR is often like 9 on the turn. Like there's like 9 times the pot available in the opponent's stack that you can be going for here. And there are proofs in the Carrot Poker Skill about why magnitude is more important to prioritize than frequency, like mathematical proofs. But take our word for it for now, listener, or don't, and look up the Carrot Poker Skill grade 2 lecture 6 on greed theorem. But if you imagine the following spot comes up, this came up this morning when I was in a coaching session, and the guy wanted to do a session on turn probing. So we started looking at these spots where button opens, big blind calls, or hijack opens, big blind calls. The flop comes something, it goes check, check, and big blind is like, has the option to lead, has their first free bet opportunity of the hand, shall we say, in what is a tiny pot compared to the SBR, which at this point, the pot can be like 6 and the SBR can be like 90. So, you're talking about there being like 15 to 20 times more in the stack than there is in the pot. Not only that, but you also arrive on the turn with a nut advantage most of the time because your opponent checked back the flop, and while they don't have to check back a really, really weak range overall, and they'll condense by checking, they'll move towards the middle, and they might move away from air a bit as well as away from the nuts. It goes without question that they're moving away from the nuts when they don't bet the flop in position, right? That's normal good poker, is to bet the nuts in position on the flop at big SPR. So we looked at a spot where the board was king, queen 4, let's say, and the turn was a 6. And it's like, yeah, maybe it's a flush draw present or something like that. And big blind strategy there is just to play like not very much leading because king queen 4-6 is a bad board for them, to mainly check, to not really try and get thin value denial with a pair of 7s or something, because it's just not worth it. The queen isn't good enough or vulnerable enough to rush pot growth with. The only thing that has this super high investment ceiling, in the way you put it, that wants to get stacks in is something like king queen or king jack on a really crisp run out, or maybe king 10 in some occasions. Probably doesn't get stack in, but it gets like a lot of money in. And then the hands that want to play for stacks are like 4-6, 2 pair, set of 6s, set of 4s, queen 4, queen 6, king 4, king 6, and straights that aren't there yet but are going to be rivered, right? Sometimes. So when you've got 5-7 or 8-5 or something, sometimes the river's going to be an 8 or some card that makes the straight, and you're going to be able to have the nuts and want to play for stacks again, right? So the big blind basically plays a strategy where they lead like 2x pot or 3x pot. If you give the solver the option, it's going to start using these sizes, right? Or check raise 3x pot and then jam the river for another 2x pot or whatever. Like that's the strategy. So when you like B160 the turn, which is a normal sort of overbet sizing, and your opponent calls, and then the river comes a 7, so it's like king queen 4 5 7. When you're there with a set or 2 pair or a straight, you're going to go all in GTO practically all the time for 100 big blinds into the pot you've created, which is now like 30. You're going to shove for 3 or 4x the pot. And that makes so much sense because it's like, okay, I have the absolute nuts. I have like 98% equity. I have 100% equity, whatever it may be. Let me put all my money in. And when you do that, you drive down the frequency you get called at, but it's still theoretically correct. And you can make exploitative arguments like, well, if they're folding their whole range, then it's no longer correct. That's true. Now you have to exploit, find a different strategy if they're just literally overfolding to that extent. But without that read, you should be putting your stack in there and going 4x pot, which means that you then need to have it in your locker to be on the turn with some bluff hand. Let's say that you get to the turn of King, Queen, 5-4 with, I don't know, some other sort of straight draw, right? Some 8-7 offsuit.
Yeah,
and
just gonna say,
yeah, and you bet like 1.6x pot, and your opponent calls, and the river comes a 3. So it's 3-4-5. King, Queen, 4-5-3. And on the river, you're there with 8-7 high. And you're like, okay, well, I'm going to have a EV of 0 if I check, right? I will always lose the pot if I check. And if I had a value hand here, I would very often go all in. So it follows from that at least a decent frequency of the time with a hand like 8-7, which unblocks many of your opponent's folds, and does block 7-6 just in case they played it that way and it got there. You should be going all in with 8-7, right? Like that seems like the default play to me for 3 or 4x pot. But no one ever does it. Why do they not do it? It goes back to your point about they're not willing to live with the consequences of it not working. They're not able to detach that sense of shame from the reality of the situation. The reality of the situation is if you go all in there for 4x pot, you know, if you go all in for 3x pot, you need 75% fold equity to break even. 4x pot, you need 80% fold equity to break even. Most humans that you come across in a 1-3 game who have capped their range like that and checked back the flop and then called the turn, most of them are very, very scared by this line as well, right? They're also feeling terrible about it. So when you go all in there, sure, you might run into like a maniac. If you're playing online, you might run into the wrong player type, or a live player might just get a random thought in their head and it's the variance of just what they put you on and what they think of you in that moment, and they may call you. But very often they're just going to snap fold their hand without really thinking. So if you do get called there, it's time to just say, okay, this is in the sort of minority. My final point here is that if you are against a known fish who isn't really thinking about sizing and isn't really reactive to sizing, is underly elastic to sizing, then you shouldn't go all in as a bluff. You should go all in for value, and you should find some other overbet sizing as a bluff. Like if you go 2.5x pot, is that going to elicit a different reaction from 4x pot from a whale or a fish or something? Probably not. So that's where you then want to start slice and dice your sizes and be really unbalanced between value and bluffing. But yeah, having these plays in your locker, or having the realization that No Limit Holdem wants you to play for stacks in a tiny pot on the turn, that's really exciting. It makes the game so much more interesting than just, I bet twice for 70% pot, I hope I get called. I can't handle the feeling of not getting paid, you know?
Yeah. I'll also make another comment. If you were to take that line, like you just went through and say you jammed on the river with 8-7 or something, and you get called, even if you get called by someone that's, say, slow played king, queen, or even like had a king or something, and you show that down, everyone will notice at the table, and they will be on alert about you. It doesn't matter what they think. Some of them may think, oh, this person's a maniac. Some of them may think, oh, this person's completely unbalanced. Some of them may think, holy crap, like what's going on? But they will be alerted to they will be alerted to you as a player, and you will disrupt the normal kind of acceptable behavior in your group, and you will become abnormal. And I like being the abnormal one, because then you can act in ways that are you can act in ways that you can act in. Once you're looked at as abnormal, then you will get results that other players wouldn't get. So maybe he calls you down once with king high on that, but he doesn't do it twice, or it doesn't happen from another player. They don't want to be put in that kind of a situation where their entire stack's at risk, especially if it's like a 5-10 game or 2-5 game or something like that, where they're actually sitting deep. Now, I know I don't know, was your example using 100 bigs or more? Like if they're sitting with 100 bigs or deeper?
Well, that example was 100 bigs, but if you add 50
Yeah.
bigs to the stack, the solver's going to go all in for 7x on the river now and
Right.
prefer 4x pot on the turn. It's going to
Right.
compensate for the extra depth there.
Right. Right. So people don't want to play for stacks in live poker unless they feel fairly comfortable where they're at. And I don't know a lot of players that would feel comfortable where they're at facing a jam from big blind in that situation. Maybe with two pair, maybe. But I just, a lot of them would think set. You have a set, you bink to set, you have a straight, whatever. So I think it's an incredible profitable. I think it's a very profitable line, and I think even when you do get called, it's profitable. If it's profitable in ways that aren't immediately apparent, but kind of show up in other ways. So, yeah,
Okay.
really good point.
So this has been working out well for you. Your foray into heads up has kind of invigorated you. It's given you more passion about the game. It seems like it's inspired your normal like full ring or six max game as well. What's the next step then? Last week we noted at the end that you had a very important announcement to make to everyone today. What is your exciting thing that you've decided you might do or will do?
So my exciting thing is I have a new goal that next year when the World Series rolls around, I want to play the 25K heads up event. And this event kind of has a reputation of being bringing in a lot of international crushers. Obviously, the buy-in is very high, so there's not a lot of recreational or amateur players playing in. It's capped at, I believe, 64 entrants. So it's a kind of classic heads up format where, I mean, I believe maybe the World Series invented this format, but I know like the heads up tournament I played here locally had the same format where you just basically face off in each round. And
so knockout, like a bracket that you just go all the ways.
Right. So, so I don't even know if it's probably not the best ROI when it compared to other tournaments for sure. Like when you can buy in for 10K at the main event, or even lower buy-ins for bigger tournaments, but I don't care. I want the experience and I want to play against the best players and I want to challenge myself to do it. So I believe this year it was at the end of June, the end of May. I'm sorry, end of May, early June. So it's right at the beginning of the series. It's one of the first events. So that's my goal. That's my plan.
Awesome. Yeah. So who are some people that you're likely to face? Is there other people like Dwan and Ivy and the Granu playing this thing? Or is it like modern day crushers? Or
I don't think a lot of them play. Maybe they do. I didn't really review the lineup too closely this year. But it is like a lot of I think probably some online players, and I think just a lot of top players. I think a lot of elites probably like that aren't as famous as Negreanu and Dwan, but nonetheless are like have really strong reputations, really good players. I don't think, and I think maybe, I don't know this for a fact, I'm just speculating, but I think if you're like a professional that's playing the World Series and you're laying out your plan for what tournaments you're going to play, I don't know if this one necessarily would be on your list because the ROI is probably not worth it. But like if you're buying in, I think there's another high roller that's like a 25K, but you're making a lot more money if you cash. So I don't know. I'm just speculating. This is all in the early stages, but all I've identified a goal, and in a Petersonian way, even though I think this season he's no longer welcome on the podcast, but in a Petersonian way, I'm orienting myself to that goal, and I'm going to spend as much time as I can balanced out with studying for my normal full ring game, my normal live game, but I'm going to incorporate a lot of heads up study to prepare myself for this.
I think the way you can do it then, if we're going for like season 3's views on Peterson, is that instead of standing up straight with your shoulders back like we would in season 1 and aligning yourself with the world and the way that you want to achieve your goals, what you should probably do is write some kind of scripture about you winning the 25K WSOP of 2025 And then if you distribute it enough and talk about it enough and reason about it enough, it will become real. Like, it will be real. It will be indistinguishable from the real thing. And you will have magicked your victory into existence using semantics and scripture. So I think that's what you should probably do, is get started on writing that Bible if you win it.
That's a good point. Yeah, I should do that. Yeah. A lot of people have that mentality about like visualizing something happening just over and over again, and then it happens. So
yeah, it was more talking about this sort of weird philosophy he does where he magics things into existence. But visualization, like, there is an actual body of evidence, I'm pretty sure, for that, like rehearsals and like imagining something. If nothing else, it prepares you, you know, to act in accordance with that. Like, if you go into that event thinking, I'm going to win this, like, I can easily win this is fine, this is under my control, you're going to have such a better mental game than if you go in it like absolutely scared. Because the default state, like if you didn't prepare for it, right, and we just dropped you in there right now, would probably be, I don't know, would you be somewhat like afraid or shell shocked? Would you be like going about it with a bit of trepidation, at least inwardly, or do you think you would just be okay? Like, do you need to prepare for it basically to get into that mental space?
I think I would probably be okay. I mean, I've played a fair amount of heads up by now.
It's a different stage though, right? It's a much bigger stage, much bigger amount of money, cameras, lights, famous people.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. I think it would be more like, I don't know. I don't know how I feel. I probably would have nerves based on just the fact that it's a big stage, but I don't think, like, in terms of like playing, no matter who my opponent was, I would feel, I don't know. I don't have room. I can't feel intimidation. I can't. It's just not. I can't do it. In fact, that's sometimes my default, is that I'm too, or I would say a weakness or a leak or whatever, where I'm too willing to kind of downgrade an opponent and think, oh, this opponent's not as good as maybe they think. Or even if I feel like they're strong, I'm like, they're not really that strong. Maybe it's a way of me overcompensating, but it's very rare that, I mean, maybe it's happened a few times when I've played online where I've been against people where I'm just like, okay, this is like, this player is like clearly much more studied than I am, and I'm just out of my depth for sure. But in a live setting, that hasn't really happened that much. And for the most part, it's just me. It's the mistakes I make that are what bothers me. It's my own falling short to my own expectations, what I'm capable of. And maybe that's naive, and maybe I just haven't played big enough or on a kind of large enough stage to encounter that. I'm sure I will, but I won't have time to feel like, oh my God, I'm out of my depth. I just won't. That just won't be a thought process in my head, period.
Yeah, fair enough. So what are you going to work on in your game then to get ready for this? Like, what kinds of things do you think are weaknesses or areas that you want to shore up before the time rolls around for this challenge of yours?
I think I need to understand the nuances between kind of, first of all, the kind of line, what are you going to call it, threshold lines or whatever, where between like folding with like top pair and calling, those spots that are close to where I understand that, or my opponent's indicating through their play that they have a strong hand, but I have a strong hand too, and I don't have the nuts, and I don't have, I don't necessarily even have like a bluff catcher or anything. I don't know exactly where that line is, and I have to get more specific about that. And I also have to understand the nuances between, having 20 bigs, having 70 bigs, having 150 bigs, things like that. So all of that I can use GT Wizard for like the theoretical part of it. And then other than that, I hope to play more heads up matches online just to get the raw experience of it with with people on our Discord. And then I have a few other friends that I play with.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting as well, like who your opponent is, because some opponents you'll be able to probably exploit and figure out what they're doing. And there might be other ones who are just playing such a solid base game that the best you can do is retreat into some kind of approximation of like theory, like you would have at the start of a match against like JLu or the other Justin.
Yeah.
So I definitely think like learning what kinds of, the thing is, like, the really sick part about this is that if you are playing like a GTO crapshoot where you're trying to play like a solid theory strategy and so is your opponent, and you're both being really aggressive, the amount of variance in that is like absolutely obscene. And all you can really do is like dial up your edge by like 2% by finding the right combos to call with. So like the craziest thing to me about this whole side of the game is that when poker reaches a high enough level with enough aggression, many spots where there are no exploits are just going to be a matter of, okay, if I call with this combo, I risk my tournament life, entire stack, and my EV is plus 12 chips. And if I call with this combo, my EV is plus 80 chips. And if I call with this combo, my EV is minus 40 chips. But like a big blind is like, I don't know, 20 chips here or 50 chips or something. Like, it's not a lot of big blinds. It's a very small swing. I don't know if you ever saw the experiment where six max solvers played against each other for millions of hands. Did we talk about that? And like,
we were talking about that last week, and they just like, go ahead.
One of them has like a minus 3 BB loss rate at the end of it, but was up 5 BBs in the first million hands. And just the amount of variance. And you take this down and you play in like one tournament, and it's just like, I wonder sometimes about live poker. I wonder, this might be an unpopular opinion, but I wonder if the hierarchy of good players, like in the tournament circuit, and not all of them, because I know there are good players out there who you can just tell they're great by looking at them. But I wonder how many players would have been in that elite crowd, would have made poker their profession, would have had a Hendon mob of like 35 million if they just hadn't run like dog shit. So I wonder like how many people just like were the solver 6 in the 6 solver battle that were just way below expectation. And then it makes you wonder like how many of the people who actually have done well over the past few years and have like had multiple big scores, how many of them are just like punching way above their weight in terms of how they're running? Because you'll never see either side of that. You'll never see the guy that quit poker because he just couldn't win a tournament even though he was great. You won't hear from him. He's not like famous. It's not like, look, the least lucky player in the world, look how good this guy is and look how badly he's done. Like, that exists, right? We know that exists from variant simulation, but we don't see that player. We do see loads of people who say, look at my Hendon mob, look how much I'm up. So I do just think it's a hugely underestimated thing. And when you play an instance of one tournament, it is almost like a lottery. Like, while you're going into this and you're saying, oh, I'm going to train for it and I'm going to do all of this, like, there's always some cynical perch I can sit on here and just be like, you are basically buying a 25k lottery ticket in a lot of ways by entering a single instance of one of those tournaments. But obviously that's something you're aware of, right? You know that there's no way to like force your way to the final like you could if you were a chess grandmaster. You know, it's going to be, like, anything could happen essentially. You know, you could win it or you could bust out the first round even by playing well with an edge. So what's the structure like, by the way? How much room is there to sort of tussle with people at the beginning? How deep are you?
I don't know. I have to look into all of that. I this is something that just occurred to me in terms of like an immediate goal. So I think that'll be something we can talk about for sure, but I have to look at it. I have to get better acquainted to the structure.
Cool.
Sorry.
So speaking of WSOP, do you have an opinion on this scandalous hand that's dominating the poker media in the last couple of weeks? Have you seen the
Foxen hand?
The Kristen Foxen
hand? Or are you
hand?
talking about the queen, the folding queens?
No, I'm talking about the king queen.
Oh, yeah, the king queen. Yeah, I don't know. My opinion is it wasn't a good play. It was kind of a punt. But in all fairness, I think it was really disappointing. I really wanted her to make final table. I really wanted her to win. I just felt like everything about her run was a wonderful, brilliant contrast to early 2000s poker boom, bro WSOP poker, where it was like, it was such an indicator of how far the game has kind of come. And it was so great that it was happening. And it was a player like her who crushes tournaments all over the world and is like a really good player, not just like some female player who's sun running. You know, it was like someone that's actually like a very good tournament player. And so all of that was all the ingredients were there. And I kept saying to my friend that she's like, if she wins, she's going to be the Caitlin Clark of poker. I don't know if you know who Caitlin Clark is,
Basketball
but
player, yeah.
yeah, she's just like this insanely popular WNBA player,
Mm.
and she was really popular in college too. But I kept saying that, and I also thought, she's going to inspire a whole new generation of women to play. And I think she still is. I don't think that stopped because of that one hand. But I do feel like there is some disappointment with that. And that's an incredible amount of pressure to put on her and not fair at all. But I think that was in her head. And I think that was starting to kind of build around her as she got closer to the final table. And so I feel like she probably had a lot of pressure on her in that hand. And I also feel like at that point, they've been playing for 8 days or something. It's just like it's such a grind, and like it's understandable that one could make a mistake in that hand. So I don't know, that's kind of my opinion on it, but I mean, what do you think? Did you watch it?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen the hand. I don't watch the main event. I don't really watch poker per se. If I'm watching poker, I'm watching like some coach that sent me a video for Carrot Corner that I really think is great, and I want to hear what they have to say about the game. So I don't really watch it much for entertainment these days. But I saw the hand and I saw the reaction, and like some of my friends in WhatsApp groups and stuff have been posting links to various threads where people are talking about it. Like Ben CB is famously like come on and like defended the play. Doug Polk made a video where he didn't seem to think the play was too bad and like gave some arguments for it and stuff like that. I didn't watch the whole video, so I'm not sure if that was actually the conclusion. But yeah, there seemed to be like an initial. I found like the sort of sociology of it quite interesting, like the reaction waves to it. Like initially, it's this huge wave of like, what was she doing? Like, what a terrible pun. And it's like one side of this is like, okay, because she's a woman, because there's all this spotlight on her and all this pressure on her, and because it stands out so much because, women are still such a minority in the poker world, it just got so much more traction and attention than like the hand. Like the hand is an interesting spot, but I think if that had just happened with a guy, some random guy that made it to that point, I'm just like, oh yeah, Eric just went wrong there and he's busted out and no one talks about it. Like no one's gonna like remember that play or anything like that. But because it's her and she's a bit more famous and she's a good player and she's female, like it just sparked this massive tsunami. And we get these from time to time in the poker world, right? Where an event happens, it doesn't even feel like it should be that much of an event, and it just becomes like the massive talking point across PokerX and everywhere in the poker community for weeks. Obviously, Robbie Loeb is like the most premium example of this, like was the Jack 4 off, but this is like a close second. Like I don't remember there being like a hot topic like this for ages. So I did think that like the comments you see about it, the reasons for which people say it's bad are just total trash. Like the reasons are things like, oh, you don't do that in a tournament of those kind of stakes. Maybe in a $400 tournament you risk it, but you don't risk it in the main event. It's like, yeah, that means nothing. Like you need to be putting the buy-in in perspective to the actual amount of EV that's on the table, not just looking at like what it would mean to your life, right? Like I'm sure that successful pros aren't like, oh my god, if I win this like 6th place here, I'm going to quit poker, I'm going to move to the Bahamas, I'm going to retire forever, it will completely change the trajectory of my life. No, she's still going to do it, she's still going to be on the grind, right? So it's not at all like that kind of life EV decision. And then like a bunch of other just like really bogus reasons, like, oh, this isn't a great spot for your range. Like someone said something like that. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? Like she can have Queen 10, right? Let's just go over the hand for the audience. So she's in the big blind, I want to say. And I think they're 6-handed, and I think it's low jack. Correct me if I'm wrong, Melissa. Or hijack.
I don't remember remember exactly the positions. I know what she had. I mean, she had king queen.
She has
off.
king queen off. So he opens ace king off in like the hijack. This guy, don't know who he is, but just he opens in the hijack. She calls.
He was wearing an aggressive tank top.
He looks super obnoxious. Like he looks like proper like bro kind of guy. He might not be. He may be a lovely person, but
I don't think he is. I don't think
he looks super obnoxious.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe
but it was like his tank top was so thin. It was like he was basically like shirtless. Like it was just an aggressive fashion choice. Anyways,
so he opens the hijack and she calls in the big blind with king queen off, and the flop comes ace king jack rainbow. Yeah. And he goes ahead and bets some amount of money on the flop. I think it's again between a third and half or something like that. Could be wrong, don't quote me on it. She calls, and the turn is like a 5 or something, so it's like ace king jack 5, and he checks and he goes ahead and bets like.
Are you sure? Are you sure that was the run out?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it
I
was
thought.
still just
Okay.
like a Broadway,
She didn't.
triple Broadway flop. She has a pair and a gutter,
Okay. Yeah, yeah. Pair and a gutter. Yeah, yeah.
right?
Okay. Go
Ace
ahead.
king jack, she's
Yeah.
got king queen, so she's got second pair and a gutter. He
I'm just looking
checks.
it up right
Yeah,
now.
yeah, let me know if I've got
Just
anything
making
wrong.
sure. Okay.
I don't know what the rag card is. It might not be a 5, but it's some. I'm sure the flop is 3 Broadways and then it comes something small, or like maybe the Broadway comes in a turn. But anyway, she checks the turn.
Yep.
He goes ahead and bets like fairly big at this point. I think like leaving. I don't know. And we should just stipulate here that she is somewhere around 6th in chips in the tournament. There's 12 left, like 2 tables to 6 left. She had a lot of chips.
She had a good amount of chips.
He's one of the few people that actually covers her, and there's quite a few low stacks, right? So one of the objections to the play is, you know, the laddering potential here is huge, the ICM pressure is huge. She's about to cash for like way more money. And she thinks for a little while and then just jams the king queen, like clearly as like some sort of bluff with a few outs I've called. And yeah, this play is like wild. It's like really, really uncommon. Like someone quoted it as like the biggest bluff like ever made in the late stages of the main event or something. This bluff is mind-blowingly adventurous, right? It's kind of like you've got an early position player barreling twice here, and I don't know this player, right? But your king queen, like his bluffing range is drawing kind of dead against you, right? So the denial side of this jam, so sometimes at these low SBRs, like jamming just to A, make someone fold a better hand, but B, just denying equity to like high EV draws and stuff that are behind you can be a part of it. But like his bluffing range here on ace king jack is probably like, I don't know, pocket 10s, jack 10s, under pairs, that kind of thing, like pocket 6s, pocket 5s, pocket 7s, stuff like that. And then the value range, like I don't know who this player is, I don't know how he plays, but there's I've heard a lot of chat about like, well, he could be value betting all of these ace-x combos, and I'm just like who are these live players that they're just barreling the turn again at this point in the tournament with like ace-7? Like surely not, right? Like this can't be a common thing. It strikes me as like polarization mistake territory to just be betting random ace-x here. Yeah, I've heard a ton of commentary, like the main people defending this play are saying things like, well, there's all this ace-x that's folding. It's like, well, ace-x with flush draw, because there was a flush draw now I've remembered, isn't folding, probably. And then other ace-x probably isn't betting. So what are the better hands that are bet folding? Is it just ace, queen, ace, king? And how often are they betting the turn? Because sometimes they're gonna, not ace, king, sorry, ace, queen, ace, 10, right, would be the one pair hands. Like how often are they actually betting the turn? Like is ace 10 really just pure betting the turn here? Like do we really think it's in there all the time? I don't know. I don't really think so. So in my mind, the value range for the opponent in this spot is mostly 2 pair plus with a bit of 1 pair. I think it'll be an underbluff spot. Like I've heard people saying, oh, it's early position and he's going to rep this board and it's a great board for his range. He's going to have all these bluffs. I think the commentator says in the hand, it's the kind of spot where under the gun's going to be betting really often here. And it's like, well, yeah, that's because he's got a lot of good hands, right? Like he's got all these queen 10, he's got all of these. Like if you think about that value range, he's like table captain, tons of chips. He's probably opening queen 10 off as well as queen 10 suited, right? So he's got 16 straights, of which we block a few. He's got aces, kings, jacks, 9 combos of sets, of which we block 2, so that's 7. He's got like king, jack, probably an ace, king as well for like 2 pair combos. It feels to me like whatever way you want to put it, it's an underbluff situation most likely, and even if it isn't, you could just call. And by jamming, you're attempting to make a really quite strong value region of like many, many 2 pair plus combos fold. Like my general rule for people I'm teaching is don't attack people in spots where you're asking them to fold tons of high absolute hand strength hands unless you know that they're like the type to hero fold and just put you on queen 10 here and make that fold. So to me, this was like a really bad idea. Like I'm in the punt camp like you are. And I think it's fascinating. And it's not to like throw any hate her way. She's a good player, I've heard. I don't know a lot about her, but I've heard she's a strong player and we all make mistakes and stuff like that. But yeah, I found it quite interesting how many people were like defending this and pointing at solvers and being like, okay, this doesn't happen in the solver, but these hands could be bluffing. And I just think in reality, you just have like an underbluff spot where you're asking someone to make a lot of like quite big looking laydowns on the surface of it.
Right. It felt to me like one of those spots in in a game where you're, and I would say this for a cash game because this is my experience, but
Mhm.
it felt to me like one of those spots where you're getting beat up throughout the session and you're trying to look for any daylight possible, and you're starting to create, uh, you're starting to kind of force things to happen that can't happen and that you shouldn't be forcing. So looking at that as, well, there's some value here that is not good enough to call. And like you said, it's just not the case. I mean, maybe this is more specific to how I would approach it, but that's what it felt like. It felt like you're trying to compensate for something that you're inventing a reality that isn't there. And so that, I don't know, I agree with your analysis of it. I just don't think it's a good play, and I think it's fine to say that. I mean,
Mhm.
it's fine to call it a bad play. And I think when she was interviewed right after she busted, and she made some kind of like, "Oh, I'm happy with my play," and everything. And when I was talking to my friend, she was like, "Oh, well, she thought it was a good play." And I'm like, she was probably in shock.
Mm.
She was probably literally in shock that she just busted with that play and was just scrambling in the interview to maintain some kind of, just to say words. I doubt she
Mm.
even remembers what she said in that post bust out interview,
Mhm.
because they literally interview people right after they bust off the table.
Yep.
And after playing for 8 days straight and making it to that high of a level and having all of that energy behind her,
Yep.
and then busting in that fashion, I guarantee you she probably wasn't even aware of what she was saying.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, she plays a lot of really big tournaments. I mean, she's kind of a, so I understand it. I mean, she's playing the high roller tournaments all over the world.
Mhm.
So, for the players of that caliber, this is the main event's just another tournament. I
Mhm.
mean, I know went pretty deep, but still, it's not like some amateur player that just happened to kind of fumble. It wasn't like, Moneymaker or
Mhm.
something, just kind of fumbling their way to a deep run. So I think as a professional player, she's probably still pretty shocked. She would be probably pretty shocked at that play, but the fact that she thought it was good in the moment, I don't think really means anything.
Yeah, I think if I was on the receiving end of that, I'd be very, very scared even with Ace King though, because I just wouldn't expect it of someone at that point
He
in the tournament.
snapped. I
It's
mean,
such,
he like,
oh, I mean,
yeah,
that's just
yeah,
not good.
yeah,
Like the snap is
right,
absolutely terrible. The snap
right,
is like
right.
okay, it
He didn't
might
even
be a
think about
call,
it. Yeah,
but that snap
yeah,
is like,
yeah,
if I'm losing, I refuse to accept it. If I'm beat
right,
here, I'm going to
right,
chalk it up to a cooler. I'm not going to fold to you and risk the embarrassment of folding Ace King in the spot call. He made no
right.
attempt whatsoever to actually think through
Yeah,
the spot. Like, he has a
that,
bluff catcher. I don't
yeah,
think she can be jamming here with even, like, I don't know, tournament players do get super mergy, though, sometimes. I've seen this in live tournaments where they expect
yeah,
their opponent to jam, like, King Jack or something here. But I guess he might be, I mean, like, for her to jam Ace Jack for value, that feels way too thin to me. Like, Ace Jack is surely just a
yeah,
call, right? Like, I don't
yeah,
think she'd
yeah,
jam Ace
yeah,
Jack for value there. Like, if King
yeah,
Queen is a bluff, there's no way the value range starts at Ace Jack. I think the value range is basically Queen 10.
yeah,
Maybe there's jacks in there that she didn't 3-bet pre for whatever reason this time. Like, I guess that's possible, but I don't think there's really anything worse than that in there for value. But if I faced that play with the Ace King, my first fucking thought, from having played a ton of poker and having seen, okay, I don't play a ton of poker these days, but having played poker for a long time and having seen these spots, is just that, like, this is like an unbluffed spot. Like, with
right, right,
two tables of six-handed just before the final
right,
table, a medium
right,
stack who's meant to sort of be the bullied one, who's meant to be the scared one that waits to ladder and waits for a spot to double, just doesn't ever take this spot in the tournament setting. And even in a cash game, in like I'm imagining like an SBR like this, similar to like a 3-bet pot where you barrel a couple of streets and they shove on you in that texture, that
mm-hmm,
big double Broadway, triple Broadway texture. Like, if fish shoves on you there, you're like, okay, they're merging. They can have King Jack. They
right,
can have Ace Queen. Like, I'm going to call Ace King in a heartbeat. But when a reg shoves on you in that environment, you're just like, holy shit, I must be dead. Like, they can have 16 Queen 10.
especially on the turn,
Yeah.
especially on the
Like,
turn.
okay, like,
Yeah,
did she slow play
yeah,
the flop with Queen 10? Like, it's very possible, right? It's not that unlikely that you'd, like, take a card off with Queen 10 there and wait till later.
right,
They're in-position players barreling tons of their value region on the turn and some bluffs anyway, even if they're under bluffing. So definitely
mm-hmm,
you can go for that line of just call flop. And then straights are fucking terrifying, man. This is the thing that I don't think her opponent actually understood, is that there are 16 combinations of Queen 10 and they are unblocked by your Ace King, and you are dead
right,
to 4 outs against them.
right,
This is no small
yeah,
deal. This is a very,
right,
very worrisome thing for the early position player there. Straights are lethal.
Yeah, exactly. And and maybe that was part of what was in her head because she had a queen.
Mm-hmm.
But I think one take that could be a fresh take on this is his snap call was worse than her play.
Mm-hmm.
In the sense of how quickly he reacted to it without thinking through any of that,
Yep.
without
Mm-hmm.
allowing himself to fully deal with the reality of the situation. I mean, that's a fortune reversal spot.
Yeah.
And that's a snap call in a fortune reversal spot is
Still.
someone that just is not good. And I think had he stopped and had he kind of thought about it, even for 30 seconds,
Yep.
that would have been much better. So maybe the hot take is that not his call necessarily, but his reaction to it was worse than her play.
100%. I think that's to me, if I'm playing against 95% of people in the world there and I'm in that spot with ace king, I'm actually going to fold. And I'm not talking about playing against fish who are merging and jamming with ace queen, and I'm not talking about playing against really tough pros who are sick and are actually going to make me indifferent or even winning with that call.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about playing against average rigs. Like if I sat down in some tournament, even quite a reasonably high buy-in tournament, and played against some reg that was a reasonable player, I'd still be shocked to see someone choose to bluff that spot in that environment. So I don't know. I don't want to go as far to say that against her it's a fold. But man, if she had queen 10 there and he folded, would we not be saying incredible fold? I'm pretty sure the whole world would be like, what an incredible fold. Or let's reverse it. Let's say she had ace king, he had queen 10 and he jammed the turn. It would be like, what a hero. She's playing so well. This is an amazing rail. Blah, blah, blah. So the other funny reaction to this for me is just the whole community has just glossed over his ace king call and been like, oh, he's near top of range, he has to call. They've not even considered the fact that he may have a bluff catcher in an unbluffed spot or underbluffed spot. So it's super weird as far as I'm concerned.
It is interesting that there's been no talk about that whatsoever. But that's really interesting. And it's funny because I had a pretty sick fortune reversal spot that I've been thinking about talking about here. So maybe we can end with that.
Yeah, let's do it.
If you want to talk about it and just change the subject. So this was a 2-5 game. I think it was 2-5. And I was pretty deep. I think I had maybe 1,500 and my villain had close to the same, maybe a little bit less, like 14 or something. Anyways, I was big blind. He was under the gun. This is a somewhat inexperienced, not terrible, maniac or anything, but a fairly tight, inexperienced player who wasn't opening a lot of hands, wasn't really playing a lot of hands, but opens from under the gun. And I'm in big blind. I call. I have queen 6 of hearts. And make sure I can remember how this came out. So the flop was 6, 9, 10 with 2 hearts. So I had a flush draw.
And a pair of sixes.
I check. He bets I don't know, a little over, I think he probably bets half pot. And I raise and he immediately snap calls. So just doesn't think twice about it, just snap calls. Okay, that was the first indication that maybe something was a little bit odd here with this hand or something that I kind of banked in my memory bank. So the turn came out and it was a deuce of hearts. So I had a flush. And at the time I felt like I could bet big or I could check. And I checked and he checked back. And the river was a king of diamonds. So I then lead for 75% pot and he jams.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, I think my inclination's to bet the turn. just
Yeah, I would
because.
agree. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I think you can bet small in theory as well because like these flush
yeah,
turns they eat away at your nut advantage, but a lot of your range connects and like you just have a load of value hands like sets, two pair and flushes that aren't nut
right,
flushes. So just like I think you can
right,
have smaller sizes there and just I wouldn't pot the turn. I think I'd bet like
right.
half pot on the turn or something like that. Maybe
Yeah,
exploitatively going more than like the 1/3 I would go in theory there, just because I think like the guy
yeah,
snapped the flop, he's probably got overpair ace queen a ton. So let me size up a bit. I think that live players go into like a not bluffing you shell and also like quite a cagey shell when they're attacked like that and the flush comes and they're liable to call a lot wider than they are to bet, right? I think. So that's my
yeah,
rationale for turn. River's
yeah,
interesting though. We
yeah.
go through, I mean, I think you could size up on River ostensibly and just like,
Yeah,
it's kind of inconsistent now. You've checked turn. You're
right,
going to get a
right,
lot of
right, right,
curiosity calls now. I think there's going to be a bit of
right.
inelasticity now where they're not that sensitive to sizing because they're like, huh, you checked turn and then you did this. So I might go bigger on River, but as played, like, this is obviously the classic I was value betting and now I'm deciding whether I can even call kind of line. What
Right.
was the River card again? Just remind me?
It's like a king of diamonds.
King of Diamonds. So a couple of questions to answer here. First is like, is this player raising worse for perceived value, or like are they making a polarization error with like king, queen,
No,
or kings? You don't think that's ever
no,
happening?
no,
Okay.
no. I don't think that's ever happening. And I also think that his under the gun range is like very, very linear. I mean, I don't, I mean, I think he's top of his range under the gun opening. Um, ace, king, aces, queens, kings. Um, but I don't think that he would. And honestly, because we were so deep and because this was a little bit of a bigger game, and I got the sense that he's
Right.
not the kind of person that's just going to basically put his whole stack in on the river with pocket kings hitting a set on the river with a
Was it
flush.
his whole stack he put in? Like how big did he go?
Yeah,
How big
yeah.
was it in relation to the pot after you bet?
So the pot, I believe the pot was like 400, and I think he jammed for after I bet it was 400,
Mm-hmm.
and I think he jammed for uh like I guess it would be like 2.5x.
Right. So you've put like 160 into 240 or something like that.
Yeah,
That's made a
yeah,
pot of 400, and then he's jammed for like 2.5 times the pot
yeah,
at that new pot,
yeah,
which in
yeah.
relation to your bet is like 5, 6 times your bet. So it's a
Right.
big old jam. Yeah, I wouldn't think this is kings, king, queen, or anything like that
I
either.
didn't think.
I wouldn't think so.
I I can tell you what my thought process
Hmm.
was, is that ace king of hearts, so ace king with the better flush,
Yeah.
aces with an ace of hearts.
Do you think this player is
Uh
capable of like turning pair plus blocker into
no,
bluff?
that's the
Like,
thing.
right? Okay.
That's the thing. I didn't. So I ended up folding.
Hmm.
And I and the reason is and it felt so weird to say I just think he has a better and the thing that really was so tough is that the king on the river was like it's one of his kings. But I also felt like I just felt like it was so aggressive and so under it was such an it was just under bluffed with how that line, bet jam,
Hmm.
is it just felt like an under bluff line. And I just felt like it was ace king of hearts. And I felt like his willingness, it went back to the flop where I raised and he bet out and I check raised him on the flop and he just immediately snap called like that, my check raise. So I'm thinking, is he
Guess
doing
us
that with a draw?
ace jack of hearts, ace ten of hearts isn't possible, right? Because there's a 10 on the flop, so it's like
Right.
we're
So
full
it's
ring
ace
here.
jack. Yeah, full ring.
We open like ace five suited under the gun.
Maybe.
So ace five suited, ace jack suited,
Yeah.
ace nine suited,
Yep.
ace king
Yep.
suited, king jack of
Yep.
hearts, maybe. King, yeah, king jack of hearts as well. So we're up
King,
at
king,
like,
queen, king, queen, king, queen of hearts, but I have a queen.
you have the queen of hearts.
Right.
So you can't have
I'm
that.
sorry, king. I'm sorry, king. Oh, king of hearts, like a
Yeah.
king queen with
Yeah,
a king of
he can't,
hearts.
yeah,
Yeah,
no, but we're talking value
yeah.
hands,
He's
right?
not,
So
and
he's
he's
got
not
like,
doing that. He's
right.
not doing that.
But
Yeah,
I'm just mapping out the value hands. He's got like 5 value combos or something like that. So for
yeah,
you to call, it would take a couple of bluff combos, like 2 or 3 bluff combos to make their way in there. The big problem here is that if someone is ever bluffing, they're over bluffing, but most people don't have a bluff button, if that makes sense. So like if you
yeah.
knew that villain was capable, they probably are overdoing it now. Like the minute they're capable of jamming the ace of hearts blocker, well, they're over bluffing because there's way
Right,
more combos of ace of hearts X here. There's ace of hearts queen, there's ace of hearts king, there's ace of hearts whatever. ace of hearts 10 maybe, pocket aces with ace of hearts. There's all these unblocked ace of hearts combos, and anyone who's capable of bluffing is over bluffing, and you should definitely call after the line you've taken. However, for most humans, they're not capable of bluffing, so your win rate is 0% against the majority of humans here, right? So it's like there's a few humans against whom I win comfortably more than I need to, and then there's this other big whack of humans that you just win never against. And it's like, well, if you have no read on the pool, then you have to figure out what the percentage of those people are in the pool. But if you're actually saying this is like a straightforward newer player who isn't actually ever going to bluff this spot, then who cares, man? You know, you have a bluff catcher. You beat no value combos because there are no worse heart in his under the gun range to then do this for value. You can't have Jack 10. There's a 10 out there. He can't have Queen 10. You've got the Queen of Hearts. So like, you can't even have 10-9 because there's the 10 of Hearts out there. So that 10 of Hearts is like gobbling up all the lower flushes. Like if there wasn't a King of Hearts out there wasn't a 10 of Hearts out there, it would be... Sorry, if there wasn't the 10 of Hearts out there, there'd be some ambiguity about that. But like, I don't see you winning against the flush here either. So... either he's lost his mind for value sometimes, or he's never bluffing, or you're wrong and he is one of the players that's over bluffing here. But from what you knew, it feels like it's way more likely he's just never bluffing here.
Yeah. That was kind of my thought process, was that this is not, that he's just not bluffing here. And so I folded. He never showed. He ended up telling me later that he had aces with an ace of hearts. I don't know if I believe him personally. I think that he was, so I think that he was, I don't know, maybe shocked at my fold. I don't know, but it was an interesting spot where I felt like identifying the hand for what it is. It became very, I don't know, it became like
liberating.
It was weird. It became a weird hand to call with. It just didn't become...
Well, it's just like any hand. Like if you're not going to call... Like, if you think the guy's never really bluffing and you only beat bluffs, then does it really matter whether you have a queen high flush or a pair of aces? Like, is there really okay, pair of aces might actually lose to a bluff here, but say you had two pair. Say, like, your hand was a set of sixes, right? Like, that's no better to call with, really, than the... Okay, it's a bit better to call with than the queen X of heart. A bit worse to call with, maybe, because you block less value, but at the end of the day, if it's not close and the guy's never bluffing... What is the shackles? What are these, like, what is this gravity that pulls us towards these good absolute hands? Well, it's fortune reversal. We've talked about that loads of times. So I think you're getting good now at moving away from that magnetism and just being able to see a bluff catcher as a bluff catcher and then evaluate how often the opponent's bluffing. I mean, that's really what you've got to do in these spots. I
thought, well, it would have been interesting, like, if I had bet on the turn, if I had bet small, what would that have done? What information would that have given me? How, what would have happened there? Had I bet small and he raised, or had I bet small and he just called, it would have made the river a lot different.
Yeah, for sure. This is chaos theory, right? You do one thing differently, everything changes. All right, guys, we'll leave it there for this week. If you're liking Poker Distilled, please take a little minute out of your day to share it with a friend, or rate it on Spotify. We really appreciate it. If you are watching on YouTube because you're a boomer and you haven't discovered Spotify and listening to things with what are they called? Earpods.
Yeah. We have I don't know. I don't think we have I wouldn't guess we have a ton of boomers listening.
We have some boomers. Like I'm always like, man, my poker fans are like the coolest people. It's all like Hollywood A-list actors and actresses are like are my fans, and then it's actually just like a nerdy guy that looks at solvers all day, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. So maybe the audience is just boomers, and like we just think it's like, young, hip, cool people. But anyways,
I think it's young, hip, cool people. And I mean, boomers can be hip too.
Boomers can be hip. Exhibit A right here, guys, right here.
Yeah, there you go.
So yeah, do that, and we'll be back with episode 4 of season 3 pretty soon with more exciting contemporary poker topics. Until then, run good.
See you later.
Bye.
I'm running up stones on the edge of the bank. Rally the troops for another refrain. I sing this softly to myself. I sing this softly to myself. I'm singing this song to myself. I sing this softly to myself. Tore up my jeans on the fence. This iron road I cannot bend, but my walking is lighter when I walk with a friend. I sing this softly to myself. I sing this softly